All right, ready for a deep dive into a career path that most people probably don't think too much about, but one that's way more involved than it seems at first glance.
Hit me with it.
We're talking about those folks who navigate the world of high-end speakers, jumbo TVs, and enough cables to make your head spin audio-video equipment specialized sellers.
Oh, yeah. Those are the folks you want on your side when you walk into a store and are completely overwhelmed, right?
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, trying to uncover what it really takes to thrive in this world. We've got a ton of fascinating source material to dig through, so let's get to it.
Sounds good to me.
Now, when you think about audio-video equipment specialized sellers, what's the first thing that comes to mind? I'm guessing it's someone with like a superhuman knowledge of all things tech.
Yeah, that's probably the stereotype, right? The tech whiz who can rattle off specs in their sleep.
Exactly. But looking at all this research, it seems like there's so much more to it than just knowing the difference between Dolby Atmos and like DTSX.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's way more nuanced than that. I mean, knowing your tech is essential, obviously, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
So what else is going on beneath the surface then? What do these sellers really do beyond just, knowing a bunch of tech jargon?
Well, think about it. You're working with a huge range of customers.
Right.
Some folks walk in knowing exactly what they want, ready to debate the pros and cons of the latest audio formats.
Right, the hardcore audiophiles who already have their home theaters planned down to the millimeter.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have people who are like, my old TV just died. What's a good replacement?
So you need that ability to like shift gears depending on who you're talking to. That's got to be tough.
It's a real balancing act. You could have someone who's super tech savvy, and then someone who's intimidated by the sheer number of buttons on a remote control, all in the same day.
That makes total sense. You have to meet people where they're at tech-wise.
Absolutely. And on top of all that, these sellers are the ones explaining complex features, often demonstrating how things work, processing transactions.
Oh yeah, not to mention staying up to date on the latest tech. I bet that's a full-time job in itself in this industry.
It's nonstop. New products, new features are coming out constantly, so you're always learning, always adapting. There's no time to rest on your laurels in this field.
It's like being a tech translator, right? Taking these complex ideas and making them accessible and exciting for everyone, no matter their tech level.
You got it. It's definitely not your average retail gig. You need serious tech knowledge, but you also need to be a people person, a problem solver, and maybe even a bit of a mind reader when it comes to figuring out what the customer really wants.
Okay, so we've established this isn't just about knowing the difference between 4K and 8K. You need a whole other skill set on top of that.
Right. It's way more dynamic and demanding than it might seem from the outside. But that also means there's a ton of opportunity if you're someone who thrives in that kind of environment.
Which leads us to a very important question. What's in it for someone considering this path? What are the pros and cons they should be aware of?
The million-dollar question. Well, let's dive into those, and I'll be sure to highlight the things that I think would be most relevant to anyone listening who's thinking, maybe this is the career for me. All right, so perks and challenges. Well, let's start with one of the biggies, maybe the thing that first attracts a lot of people to sales in general.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this, the earning potential.
Bingo. This research actually highlighted the potential for high earnings in this field.
Music to my ears. I bet that's a big draw for a lot of people. But how does that actually play out? Is it like a base salary plus commission?
It can vary depending on the company, of course, but
Huh.
yeah, often you've got a base salary to give you some stability, and then on top of that, you have those juicy sales commissions. And bonuses, too, if you're really knocking it out of the park.
So a good month could mean a really nice bonus check. That makes sense. But then I guess a slow month could also mean a bit of a financial squeeze.
That's the trade-off, for sure. It's not always going to be smooth sailing. You got to be comfortable with that potential for fluctuating income.
That makes sense. It's not just about the love of tech. It's also about understanding the business side, understanding sales cycles, and all that jazz.
Totally. And this isn't just about pushing boxes off the shelves, right? It's specialized selling. These sellers are building relationships with customers, figuring out their needs, understanding their budget.
So it's more like being a consultant than just a salesperson.
Exactly. It's about finding the right solution for each person who walks in the door, not just pushing the most expensive thing on them.
Which probably explains why the research emphasized skills like active listening and negotiation as being so crucial in this role.
Oh, absolutely. because you're going to run into those tricky conversations, right?
Mhm.
Someone's balking at the price. Maybe they're comparing a ton of different options. You've got to be able to handle those objections, address their concerns, and hopefully guide them towards a decision that everyone feels good about.
It's a delicate dance, for sure. And speaking of things that require finesse, the research also mentioned flexible work hours as a potential pro of this career path. But knowing retail, I have a feeling those flexible hours often mean evenings and weekends.
Yeah, that's the catch, isn't it? Those peak shopping times are often when these sellers are needed most.
It's the nature of the beast, right? People aren't always shopping for a new sound system during their 9 to 5.
Exactly. But, you know, for the right person, that kind of schedule can be a good thing. Someone who thrives on that fast-paced energy, who maybe even enjoys the buzz of a busy sales floor. It can be a good fit.
Yeah, that's a good point. And let's be real, there's a certain excitement that comes with being surrounded by the latest and greatest tech all the time. And speaking of that, the research mentioned how this career path tends to attract people who are just generally passionate about technology. Like, they're the ones who always want to get their hands on the newest gadget, the newest model.
Totally. And it's not just about having fun with new tech, although I'm sure that's a poke. It's about that drive to continuously learn, to stay ahead of the curve in a field that's constantly evolving.
Which, as you said earlier, is crucial in this world. Today's cutting edge is tomorrow's, well, not so cutting edge. So that continuous learning mindset is key. Now, for someone who's listening to all of this and thinking, okay, this actually sounds kind of amazing, but where do I even begin? The good news is the research also gave us a pretty clear picture of what a typical career progression looks like in this field.
Yes, it's actually pretty well defined, which is good for anyone who likes to see that there's a potential career ladder to climb.
I love a good career ladder analogy. So let's break it down. Where does someone typically start out in this world?
So, like a lot of industries, you're usually starting on the ground floor. Think entry-level positions, assisting customers, ringing up sales, maybe even doing some stocking and tidying up those demo stations.
The retail grunt work, gotta pay your dues.
Exactly. But it's all valuable experience, right? You're getting a feel for the retail environment, learning the ropes, interacting with customers, and proving yourself.
So mastering the basics, showing you can handle those fundamental customer service interactions, that's key for moving up.
Exactly. You got to build that solid foundation.
Mm.
And once you've done that, that's often when you're ready for a junior sales role.
Okay, so let's talk about that next step. Junior sales. What does that entail? How is it different from those entry-level positions?
Well, in a junior sales role, you're starting to take on more responsibility. You might even have your own product category to focus on, like you become the home theater guru, or maybe you're the personal audio expert.
I can see how that would be exciting, getting to really dive deep into a specific niche.
It's where you start to really hone those specialized selling skills.
Mm.
You're doing more in-depth product demonstrations, handling more complex questions from customers, and you're probably starting to get into upselling and cross-selling.
Ah, yes, the art of the upsell. Suggesting that extra HDMI cable or the wall mount to go with that new TV.
Exactly. It's a valuable skill set.
For sure. But it's not just about pushing extra products, right? It's about understanding the customer's needs and showing them how those additional items can really enhance their overall experience.
100%. It's about adding value, not just adding to the bill. And as you excel in that junior role, consistently hit your sales targets, maybe even start mentoring some of the newer hires. That's typically when you're on track to move up to a senior salesperson position.
So now we're talking about more than just closing deals, right? It's about leadership and contributing to the team's overall success.
Exactly. A senior salesperson might be leading a small team, training new team members, even getting involved developing sales strategies or managing those really important client relationships.
So the scope of responsibilities really broadens at that level. It's less about individual transactions and more about the big picture.
You got it. And of course, with that comes more responsibility, potentially higher earning potential too. But there's one more rung on that ladder, the ultimate leadership role, which, according to this research, would be the shop manager.
Okay, the top dog, the one calling the shots. What does that look like? What are they responsible for?
So the shop manager, they're responsible for the entire store, from managing inventory and training staff to making sure those sales targets are met, overseeing the store's budget.
Wow, it's a lot to juggle. Sounds like a high pressure, high reward kind of position.
It definitely can be. But for the right person, someone who thrives on that level of responsibility, it can be incredibly rewarding. You're
Yeah.
not just guiding customers to the right equipment anymore. You're guiding an entire team, shaping the direction of the business. And who knows, maybe even mentoring the next generation of shop managers.
There's that career ladder again, coming full circle.
Exactly. And it all starts with that passion for technology, strong communication skills, and that willingness to learn and adapt. Because as we've been saying, this industry never sits still.
So true. Which actually brings us back to something you mentioned earlier about the importance of staying ahead of the curve in this field. What does that look like in a practical sense?
That's a great question because it gets to the heart of what makes this career path so interesting.
So are you saying that even when you hit that shop manager level, you haven't actually learned everything there is to know about this career?
Oh, not even close.
Yeah.
This field is in a constant state of evolution, which honestly is a huge part of what makes it so exciting.
Okay, so it's not just about memorizing a product manual and calling it a day. You've really got to stay on top of things, huh?
It's not enough because it's not just about the gadgets themselves. It's about understanding the bigger trends shaping how people use technology,
Yeah.
like the way we listen to music, watch movies, even just how we interact with devices in our homes. That's always changing.
I see what you mean. So it's
Yeah,
like you could be a whiz with the current tech, but if you're not paying attention to those larger trends, you're going to get left behind.
exactly. You've got to have your finger on the pulse. For instance, think about the explosion of smart home technology. It's not just selling a cool new speaker anymore. It's about understanding how that speaker integrates with voice assistants, how it fits into a larger home automation system, even how it connects to things like lighting and security.
Oh, wow. So you're not just explaining the features of one gadget, you're basically like painting this whole picture of a connected home for the customer.
That's exactly it. It's
Mhm.
about connecting the dots, showing people the possibilities that this technology unlocks. And to do that well, you've got to be ahead of the curve.
That's wild. I mean, it makes sense, but I never really thought about it that way. It's like you're not just selling a product, you're selling a whole vision of the future.
And that's where that genuine passion for tech becomes so essential.
Yeah.
Because this isn't a job for someone who just wants to, you know, learn the bare minimum and clock out.
Right. It's got to be more than just a paycheck.
It's got to be in your blood. You have to be the kind of person who geeks out over new gadgets, who's always reading about the next big thing, tinkering with devices in their spare time.
The kind of person who like waits in line for the newest phone release, that level of enthusiasm.
Exactly. Because that's the energy that's going to make you successful in this field.
That's so interesting. And I bet that as technology keeps advancing even more, specialized roles are going to pop up. Who even knows what those will look like a few years from now? But that's a conversation for another deep dive. For now, though, as we start to wrap things up here, what's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is that this is a career path with a ton of potential, both personally and professionally. Yes, you've got to be into technology, but at its core, it's about connecting with people, helping them find solutions, and just being a part of this really exciting, constantly evolving world.
That's a great way to put it. And for anyone listening who's feeling inspired right now, remember all that great information we have for you over at RoleCatcher.
Yes, do your research, see what's out there,
Mm.
and who knows, maybe this is the perfect career path for you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of another deep dive. Thanks to everyone for joining us as we explored the surprisingly complex and fascinating world of audio-video equipment specialized sellers.
Always a pleasure.
And to our amazing listeners, until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.